Welcome back to my channel, Sumates. Thank you so much for returning back. I really appreciate your support and all you do. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to be making a hip padding, and I have my papers here. This is front and this is back. So this is my basic body skirt, okay, without extra allowance except my dart allowance on the waist, okay. So on this, you don't need any allowance. You just need your exact body measurement, your waist measurement, your hip measurement, and your knee measurement, okay? So you can say I have 11 inches here for my hip circumference divided by 4, okay? So that implies that I'm working with his circumference of 44, and my waist, I have my waist circumference divided by 4, and I included only 1 inch for that allowance. Then on the back, I only added my zipper allowance and measured my exact hip circumference divided by 4, and my dart allowance also on the waist. So I'll set the back aside and we are going to be working on the front part, okay? So I took my time to explain some things that may seem confusing, okay, when making hip padding. I did that on this tutorial, okay? So I took my time to do that. So I want you to pay rapt attention, all right? So on this part of the waist for the front, I came down by 1.5 inches. This is because our our hip pad is not going to sit exactly on the waist, okay? Then on the center front, I will come in by 5 inches, okay. I measured 5 inches from the center front, that is the folded part. Then on my knee, I'm going to come up by 2 inches, okay, on the knee. So these are just the three vertical lines you need here: your waist, your hip, and your knee. All right. So I came down from the knee by 2 inches, and I came up, I mean, from the knee, and I marked it, okay, 2 inches. So now I have 3 points, and I'm going to pick my curve and I'll connect to these 3 points. All right. So I'll just blend that part, and the next thing I'm going to do is to label it. It is very important, okay? So I'll label this as up, okay, indicating that this is the upper part towards the waist. And I'll label this as down, indicating that this is the down part towards the knee, all right? It is very important so that there won't be confusion when attaching it to our main fabric, okay? So I am going to pick up my scissors and I will just cut it out. Then I will bring in the back part. So here I have my back part, okay, and I have my waist, my hip, and my knee. So just as we did for the front um part, I'm going to come down by 1.5 inches again here, and I'll mark on it, okay. Then from the line where I mark my zipper, okay, after the zipper I measured 1.5 inches. That is after the zipper allowance, I measured 1.5 inches, and I mark at that point. Now I am going to measure from my knee. I will come up by 2 inches, just as we did for the front, okay. So it is very important that you take the measurement of your client's underbutt, okay. From your waist to underbutt, it is very important when making hip padding. So I proceeded to measure from my waist to my underbutt, okay, and I'm just going to mark at that point. Okay, note that your hip padding should not be it should not be more than 17-18 inches long, okay. So highest 18 inches, it should be between 16-17, okay. So on that line where I mark my underbutt measurement, I come in by 3 inches, okay. So you see the point, we have now have 4 points. So I'm going to pick up my cup and I'll connect these 4 points together, okay. So I will try with my free hand first, after which I will also use the curve where necessary. Okay, so if you look at a woman's hip shape from below, okay, from the back, okay, you observe that this is how the shape look like. You see that shape, that curve around this point, this underbutt curve. You see this curve I'm making around there. That is how the shape of a woman hip looks like if you are looking at it from the back below. You are looking at it from down, okay? This is how it look like, okay? So, and that is the reason for this curve here. So I'll also proceed to labeling it just as I did for the front. So this is the down part, okay, and this other side is the upper part, okay. So that is that. I'm going to pick up my scissors and I'm just going to cut it out, okay. So after cutting it out, I am going to bring in the foam I am working with, and we're going to cut this pattern on our foam. All right. So you can get your foam from people that makes from a carpenter shop, or people that makes sofa chairs. You can get your this particular type of foam from them. All right. So I'll just bring in my foam and we're going to cut out just as I earlier stated. So here is my foam and it's just a 0.5 inches foam. So you can get 1 inch foam from them, or 0.75 inch foam. Okay, for the purpose of this tutorial, I am making use of 0.5 inches foam. Okay, you can as well get your 0.5 and double it if you want your hip to be more, your hip contour to be more pronounced. You can double it. Okay. So I'm going to cut two for each, okay? That means I'm going to cut two of this foam for the back, and I'll cut two of the foam for the front as well. So I have taken my time to explain in detail everything you need to know about hip padding, okay? The measurements you need to use on your pattern and on your main fabric, okay. So I want you to stick to the end of this tutorial, and you have watched, if you have watched up to this point, you have not subscribed, please go ahead and hit on the subscribe button, like this video, drop a comment for me, okay. Okay, just a thank you is enough to encourage me to keep putting out content that will benefit you and every other person, okay. If there's any adjustments you want me to make as well, I'll be glad to know that and work towards making it as well, okay. So I proceeded to transfer all the labels to the form, okay. So I labeled up and down as I did for the pattern itself earlier, okay. So as you can see, this is what we have as I open it up, and you can see the hip parts, they are matching. So we're going to trim off some excesses around here, okay, around this curved area. We're going to trim off excesses. So I'm just going to pick my scissors and I'll quickly do that. So as you trim, ensure that you don't cut around the curve, you don't alter the curve, okay. The curve should still have its shape. All we are doing is just to trim up some excesses around there, so that it doesn't the hip area doesn't look artificial when we finish making our dress on our skirt. So you can see what I have. All right, this is what we have, and it is looking very fine already. Okay, so I have my stay here, and I'm just going to gum it on it. I'm going to gum my stay to it. Okay, both side. Okay, it is very important that you use stairs like this, so stay or any cotton stair to gum it. Okay, so that it lasts on your dress. So here is the judge that I am using for this project, and I proceeded to cut it out. Okay, so I have my back part and my front part. Okay, so this paper here, I'm going to be using to explain to you what we did. So this particular 44 divided by 4, which gives me 11 inches, is what I use on the paper. You can see I label cut on paper there. Okay, on paper, that is what we use on paper. And remember that the foam we're working with is 0.5 inches foam. Okay, and my new hip is 46, so 0.5 multiplied by 4 will give you 2 inches. So that 2 inches is what I added to my 44 to have my 46. So now we're going to have 46 divided by 4, we'll have 11.5. Okay, so if you want your foam to be 1 inch, that you're going to double each part, then it should be 1 inch. 1 multiplied by 4 will give you 4. Then you're going to be adding your 4 to your initial hip measurements, hip circumference, and that is that. So I proceeded to gum my stay on my foam. Okay, and this is what we have. You can see after gumming, I also transferred my label. I labeled the upper part as the up and down part as down. Okay, so we are going to join at this point. Okay, I'm going to be joining at this point. So I'm going to bring in one of the back part, and I'll join with the front part, matching it up as up and up. Okay, so you're going to match it up. Do you see the way I place it? So I'm just going to place one on it, and I will join. Okay, and I'll do the same thing on the second part, and I am just going to sew it on my machine right here. Okay, so um on my fabric, okay, so on my main fabric, when I added the measurement, I used the new measurement, that is the new hip circumference. The new hip circumference you want to impute, that is the 46 I stated earlier. That is what I use for my main fabric. And I added my that allowance, my sewing allowance, that is normal allowance you keep in case of adjustments. Okay, that is what I did. So the only place you are going to be adding extra, that is you are going to be using the new measurement on, is on the hip area. You are still going to use your regular waist circumference, and you are still going to use your regular hip circumference, knee circumference, that is your knee measurement. The measurements you use for your knee, your regular knee measurement, that is what you use. The only thing that changed is your hip measurement, your hip circumference. That's the only thing that changed. Your waist remains the same, your knee remains the same. I hope you get that. And please remember to add your allowance to it. All right. So I proceeded to join. Okay, as you can see, I joined it, and I'm going to sew round it. Okay, so just pay attention to what I'm doing. You understand where I'm sewing round on it. Okay, towards the edge, I'm going to sew round. That is to achieve a flat surface around there. Okay, to make that side more flatter. Remember, we trimmed off some foam around there, and sewing on it will still give it another flat look. It is very important so that when we are done sewing it, people will hardly even know that there is a hip padding on the dress. Okay, people hardly know. They will hardly see a trace or any trace of hip padding. That's why it's very important. So I'm going to sew this round like 3 times or 4 times round. Okay, I'll just be going round, sewing it going round like 3 or 4 times. Okay, after which then you can trim off any excesses. Okay, I'll just trim off any excesses like this ones you're seeing around here, to make it look very neat. Okay, So I was done doing that, and this is what we have. Can you see it? Okay, can you see how the label is matching up DD down? And I can you see how I flattened this part by sewing it round like 4 times? Okay, so this is what we have. So the next thing I did, I went on to sew my dart on my skirt part and my lining part as well. I cut out my lining part for it and sew my dart on both sides. Then after that, I joined the side. Okay, I joined the front part of my lining and the back part of my lining. And on my main fabric, I did the same thing. I sew my dart, both front dart and back dart. Then I closed my zipper. Okay, I didn't close my zipper allowance. I joined the side. Okay, I joined the front with the back. Can you see it here? And I did that on the other side, and I opened iron it. Okay, can you see it? So I'm going to set this main fabric aside, and I'm going to bring back the lining piece. Okay, we are going to be attaching our hip pad on our lining piece. Okay, so here is my lining piece. Okay, note that I also open iron the seam line on my lining piece. Can you see it here? So from this point, I'm going to measure 1.5 inches. Remember, we measured 1.5 inches when we were drafting our pattern, okay, on this part. Okay, so I'm going to do that on the lining piece here, and I will mark at that point on both sides. Okay, so this is where we're going to be placing our foam. Okay, so this is my foam, and remember, this is the upper part. Okay, so upper part should match up with the upper part as well. Okay, so I am placing it back facing back. Okay, you can see the back of the foam, that is the part that had the joining, is also touching the part of the fabric that has the joining, why the starting point is placed on the 1.5 inches that I marked on my lining piece. Okay, then I also pin it on the down part as well. I'm also going to pin it on the down part here. You can see, please, I urge you to ensure that your seam line is open as you place your hip pad on it and sew. All right, so I'm just going to sew it round. Okay, I'm just going to sew at that point round after sewing after joining on the sewing line as well, this joining point on the foam. I will sew it round. So I'll pin the second part also down on the waist and also on the down part of the foam. Okay, ensuring that the seam line is facing the other seam line. Okay, the seam line of the foam is facing and aligning with the seam line on the lining piece. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and sew it and bring it back. So here I was done sewing it. As you can see, I sew it round. Okay, as you can see, and I join at this point as well. Can you see it? Okay, so this is the second part as well, and I sewed on this seam line. So let me turn it to show you what we have. Can you see it? Okay, so ensure that there's no serious rumpling around there, no serious bulging and all of that. Okay, so do you see what we have? So I'm going to bring in my main fabric, and I will open it, and I'm going to place it on it. So this is a dress I am making. Okay, it's an ashwabi a dress. Okay, it's a dress that I'm making. Okay, so before I sew this, I'm going to attach my half length to it. Then after attaching my half length with my skirt part, I am going to use this lining to turn it this way. I'm going to pin it and turn it. Then the last place that I'm going to close is my zipper allowance. So I'll do that, and I'll show you the final outcome of our dress. So this is our hip pad. This is our hip. You can see it. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all you do. Okay, can you see our bride? She's so excited, she's so happy because the hip padding came out so well. Thank you so much. Mwah.